Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next in the line of the BrightGen world famous webinars, where we're going to talk about the Dreamforce 2013 highlights. In a minute, I'm going to be handing over to our CTO and Salesforce MVP and all-round Salesforce guru, Keir Bowden. He's going to run through the features that were discussed and presented and were initiated at this year's Dreamforce. Um, at this point, I'll just say if you have any problems with the webinar software, please just email the address you saw on the previous screen, and I'll deal with those. At the end, we'll have a question and answer session, so please enter any of your questions into the chat area or email them to me. As you see there, now the agenda for this afternoon's session, Keir's going to be running through each of these features and just giving you some detail about what they are and some of the interest around them. So, Keir, without further ado, I'll hand over to you, and we'll speak again at the end of the session.
Thanks very much, Clive. So before we dive in and start looking at some of these features, the first point I'd like to make is that this is the BrightGen take on Dreamforce. So we were there as attendees. We're not Salesforce, so we might not be right about everything that we're reading into it. So the big announcement at Dreamforce this year was Salesforce One. So there's been some confusion about exactly what Salesforce One is. This quote is probably the best description I've found. It's a unifying, mobile-friendly, API-rich wrapper around everything Salesforce.com offers. So it's by turns a brand, an application, and a platform. So it's a brand. So if you go to www.salesforce.com, everything's been rebranded to give you the Salesforce One Sales Cloud, the Salesforce One Service Cloud, etc. It's also an application available on the Apple and Google stores for installation or on your desktop. But the main function of Salesforce One is as a platform, which we'll cover on the next slide. So Salesforce One is a unifying platform that simplifies integration between the various existing Salesforce platforms, which we'll obviously need to find a new name for, maybe sub-platforms. You'll still build your custom objects, fields, and pages in Force.com, but Salesforce One will allow you to interact with the other Salesforce products such as Heroku and ExactTarget, and also to make this functionality available on any device. There's an awful lot of information around at the moment on Salesforce One, including guides for administrators and developers, plus a veritable tome on the various APIs that are available, up around 500 pages worth of that. Don't worry about writing down any of these URLs, these short links, as we'll be publishing these slides after the event. There's also a number of videos available. Here's a couple that we found the most useful. The platform keynote has lots of the details and a number of case studies, but it is 1.25 hours long. The second video is a 3 to 4 minute quick overview and demonstration. So if you're a bit more time poor, that might be the one for you. So next we have the new mobile applications. So the new Salesforce One mobile application replaced Chatter Mobile the day before Dreamforce. It includes access to records, Visual Force pages, and also custom actions to allow you to extend the functionality that's available. A new feature is the Today application. This is only available on the iPhone and Android phone applications, and this integrates calendar effects from the phone with the user's Salesforce tasks, contacts, and accounts. This app runs on any device. There are installable versions for iOS and Android phones and tablets, and HTML5 versions built using responsive design that can run on other phones and tablets, or any other device capable of browsing the web, so laptops, desktops, e-readers. Excuse me. You can configure the items available in Salesforce One via the mobile navigation menu. So on the right-hand side of this slide, we can see the Salesforce One navigation menu on developer org that I've put together for the purposes of today's demonstration. So you access this via the mobile administration menu. So feed, people, and groups are the familiar Chatter items, which have been around in Chatter Mobile for some time. Smart Search Items is a new feature, and this is interesting. So this expands to show the tabs of any recently accessed records. And as well as that, it's the delineator between menu items, so the feed people groups, and applications. That's anything that sits under the apps divider. So anything above Smart Search appears as a menu item. Anything below Smart Search in the configuration appears as an application. So here we have tasks, dashboards, and projects. Projects being a very noddy application that I put together. There's a number of new configuration items for Salesforce One apps. So first up we have Flexi Pages, and the image here is the Flexi page for my projects application. So a Flexi page is made up of a named list view, so one of the list views that you configured through the UI, and a scoped set of recent items. Now these are different to the recent items you'd usually see on a custom object tab on the UI, because that would only give you items for the same object that you've recently accessed. Whereas in this situation, on the Flexi pages, you can set your recent items to include a number of objects, but as far as I've been able to find out so far, only custom objects, so I've not been able to include any standard objects. So here I've got my projects Flexi page, I have a projects list view, but my recent items is made up of projects and webinar custom objects. And finally, you can configure publisher actions that apply to this kind of application, this Flexi page. In my case, I've just got a single action configured to create a new project. The downside to Flexi pages is that they aren't configurable via the setup user interface at the moment. You have to create them in XML and upload them via the Metadata API. So I've been using the new Force command line interface, which we'll take a look at shortly. The next configuration item is mobile cards. These are a new section in the page layout editor and comprise of Visualforce pages. The pages have to be marked as available for Salesforce mobile apps and use the standard controller before they'll appear in the page layout editor. And expanded lookups. So these are a new item that display a small number of fields from an object related by a lookup field. So the related object must support compact layouts. These have been around for a little while and have been used in the past to determine the fields that appear in a chatter feed item when a record is created via a publisher action, which is something we've covered in the last couple of release webinars that we've done here at BrightGen. The displayed fields are configurable, but I found they can get truncated when they're viewed on a phone, presumably due to the lack of real estate. So as you can see here, underneath my title, it should be company name, but that's been cut off because there isn't enough room to display it in its particular column. So there's also a new administrator mobile application. This hasn't received the same level of publicity as Salesforce One, but it is out there, and it's called Salesforce A. So this allows an administrator to see at a glance if there are any users who are frozen, locked out, or they can simply access the recently viewed users list to get access to individual user information. And it also includes information about any upcoming maintenance windows. So accessing a user's record, either through the frozen or locked out lists, or simply through the recently viewed users link, allows some administration functions to be carried out. So simple user access management, allowing resetting of passwords, freezing, unfreezing, deactivating users, and also maintenance of the permission sets associated with the user. So you can choose which ones to add or remove from an existing user. So next up we have the private AppExchange. So this allows you to have your own AppExchange inside your Salesforce org. You can provide a single location for your Salesforce licensed users to find and request access to applications, even those that don't run on Salesforce. And the App Store and listings can be customized and branded, and they can include collateral such as videos, screenshots, white papers, the kind of thing that you'll typically see on the public AppExchange if you've ever installed anything from there. So for internal Salesforce applications, users can self-authorize or access can be granted via an approval process. This is permission set based. So if additional configuration is required, such as adding a user to a public group, then access would need to be set up manually. The private AppExchange is itself an AppExchange package and can be installed from the short link URL shown. Some setup is required before this can be used. So the translation workbench must be enabled for at least one language. and obviously you have to configure in the applications that you wish to offer in the store. There's a setup guide available on the public AppExchange listing, which gives chapter and verse on setting this up, or you can get in touch with your friendly BrightGen's service manager.
Hello.
So let's take a quick look at a private AppExchange that I've set up in a developer edition. So my project's app is a force.com application. So if I click into this, I can see some information about the application. I can see there's an embedded YouTube video. I can embed screenshots in there. And access to this application requires approval. So the access pending, see here up on the top right, means that I've requested access. That's gone to an approval process, but it hasn't been granted yet. At the point in time that's granted, because this is entirely managed through a permission set, the new application will become available in the applications drop down at the top right. Any tabs that are required access to will become available, and any objects that I need access to will become available. And that can all be automated through the permission sets. So Confluence is an example of an off-platform application. So I've configured some information about the app, but when a user requests access, this will require some additional work to be done to create a user ID and password, as is mentioned in the requirements. So Chatter is also embedded into the private AppExchange, so we can see here that people can ask questions about the purposes or benefits of an app and whether it's something that would be of use to them. And then finally, we have the BrightGen website. Now, this is an off-platform application, but as there's no further configuration required, there's no user IDs and passwords, users can just open the application by clicking the Open App link on the top right, and they're taken straight to it. So the next new feature is something that's likely to be of more interest to the developers out there, and that's Force CLI. So Force CLI gives you command line access to a number of Force.com features. You can maintain records, you can create, delete, update records that are instances of data, so individual opportunities, accounts, contacts, etc. And you can also maintain the metadata behind those, so the custom objects, the custom fields. You can create and delete custom objects. You can add new fields to existing objects through the metadata API. And you can also retrieve and deploy org configuration through the metadata API, so providing another option to the existing change sets, migration tool, and Force.com IDE that we know and love. So the Force CLI is a standalone executable that must be installed into your local machine. It's available at the link there. It requires a login to Salesforce, which opens a browser window to login.salesforce.com. You enter your credentials into that, and then the command line interface will then have access to your org. And finally, it's extensible. It's written in the Google Go language, so if you're a coder and you know that language, you can write your own commands or extend the existing commands. So next, Udacity. For those unfamiliar with the name, Udacity is an online learning company that offers free or paid for courses. And there is now a course on building Salesforce applications. This is squarely aimed at point and click development, so there's no requirement to be able to write code. You can access the course at the short link shown. You'll need to create an account with Udacity to be able to access the content. And make sure you click the View Free Courseware button, otherwise you'll be expected to pay for access to the course. The free courseware contains information, lectures, and automatically graded exercises. So next we have a preview of what's planned for Spring 14. So the next few slides present roadmap information. Some or all of this functionality may not make it into the Salesforce product, so always make purchasing decisions based on existing functionality, not what might happen in the future. So first up, permission sets. At the moment, permission sets have to be assigned on a user-by-user basis. You have to navigate to the user record, find the permission set related list, and choose the ones you want to add in. So support for mass adding to multiple users at the same time is coming. So what you'll get is a list of users with a checkbox by the side of them. You pick which users you want, and then you click the Add Permission Set button, something along those lines anyway. And the permission set will only be added to selected users that satisfy the requirements. So they have to be active, and if the permission set is tied to a particular license, only users in possession of that license will have the permission set added. There's some improvements coming on the way for deployments. This is something that's very dear to our heart because we do quite a lot of these over the various orgs that we manage. So you'll be able to track these in real time to see how far they've got, which components have been deployed, what the status is, etc. And this will apply to change sets and deployments carried out via the API using the Force.com IDE, the Ant migration tool, or the command line interface. You'll also be able to cancel deployments that you know are going to fail. For example, where an error indicates a key component is missing, you won't have to wait 45 minutes for all unit tests to complete before stopping the deployment, which will certainly save some time for those in more mature instances which have a fair bit of code and unit tests. Event logs are going to be made available. So this will allow you to access all of the transactional logging information that Salesforce have captured for your particular instance. So the plan is to retain up to 7 days worth of logs, and these will be made available via the via the API rather than the UI, as far as we understand it. Okay, so for more information about what's coming, take a look at the platform roadmap video at the short link there. So we've focused on the elements that are planned for Spring 14 that we think are of interest to our customers. But this video looks a lot farther ahead than that, looks out for the next 3 releases. And it also includes features which will be in pilot or developer preview. In order to get onto a pilot program, you'd really need to speak to your account executive, while developer preview is exceptionally early access, and that's only available in developer edition orgs, so not production or sandboxes. BrightGen also had a few sessions at Dreamforce, as was mentioned in Clive's original invitation for this webinar. So the first session was in the mobile theatre. This was demonstrating a couple of hybrid applications, one of which allowed ticketing information to be downloaded to a mobile device for offline presentation or storage and presentation of a QR code, and then a corresponding scanning application that would scan the QR code, verify that it was a correct code, verify that it was appropriate for the service that was being offered, and then consume that ticket and record the presence of that person in whatever service that was. This was recorded, but it looks like the theatre sessions are taking a bit longer to go up on YouTube, so I don't have a link for that yet. The slide deck is available on SlideShare, and we're planning a blog post or 2 on the BrightGen website about this. The second session was a panel Q&A session on the Technical Architect certification. So if you know anyone who's considering this, then there's some useful information in there. And the final session was on how to mobilize a Visualforce application using jQuery Mobile and Knockout.js. So this took an existing Visualforce survey application, so not the one we use to capture feedback after these webinars, but one very similar to that, and rebuilding that to run on any device. Both the recording and the slide deck are available for this session, and we'll be making the code available in the near future too, probably as a managed package and for download from GitHub. So you can find out more information about Dreamforce by following this short link to the Dreamforce YouTube channel. There are getting on for 1,000 videos in the channel, so you might have to dig around a little bit to find the elements that are of interest to you. So that's the end of our slides. So Clive, do we have any questions?
Just the one. Somebody's asked, what's happening to Salesforce Touch?
So that's a very good question. It's an interesting question because Mark Benioff didn't have very good things to say about Salesforce Touch during Dreamforce, and I think that reflects the fact that it was their first attempt at building a mobile application or a mobile platform for Salesforce, and what they tried to do was simply replicate the existing desktop UI into a mobile interface. So it only ran on iOS. It only ran on tablets. There was an HTML5 version which could run a bit, but it required a lot of real estate, and it wasn't in and of the platform. It was just trying to kind of move that across. So our understanding is that Salesforce Touch will be continuing in the short term because it's currently the only way to get mobile access to a community. But as soon as there's feature parity with that, then Salesforce Touch will not be receiving any more development effort.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Well, I think that's about it. thanks ever so much again to all of you for joining us. Please feel free to contact us on any of the details you're seeing on the screen there if you want to discuss anything in particular, or if you've got any particular interest with relevance to your own org. And I hope you've found this interesting, and thank you once again for attending. Goodbye.
Thanks very much.